You ever see something that makes you stop for a second and think, wait, what? Because that's exactly what happened today. After everything this team has done to shake things up this offseason, a new evaluation just dropped, and let's just say, a lot of fans aren't going to agree with it. Some people think the moves were exactly what this roster needed, while others believe the front office made some expensive mistakes. So let's break it all down and see whether the criticism actually makes sense or if it's completely missing the bigger picture. If you're fired up for Bengals football, make sure to hit that like button and let me know your thoughts in the comments by dropping a simple "Who Dey" if you're riding with this team no matter what. Now let's get to what really matters. The biggest talking point from ESPN's off-season report card wasn't difficult to identify. Cincinnati received a C grade for everything it accomplished this offseason, and that immediately became the headline that caught everyone's attention. Considering the amount of excitement surrounding several of the team's defensive additions, many fans probably expected something significantly higher. Instead, the overall evaluation suggested that ESPN wasn't convinced the Bengals made the right decisions during one of the most aggressive defensive overhauls they've had in recent memory. According to the report by Seth Walder, the biggest move of Cincinnati's offseason was clearly the trade for Dexter Lawrence. That wasn't a surprise. It was easily the move that grabbed the most attention around the league. But what surprised many people was that Walder listed the Dexter Lawrence trade as the move he disliked the most. At the same time, the move he liked best was the signing of Boy Mayfield. Even that, however, came with some hesitation. Starting with Dexter Lawrence, Walder argued that the trade was both uncharacteristic and unwise. His reasoning centered around the price Cincinnati paid to acquire him. Walder acknowledged that the Bengals absolutely needed to invest significant resources into improving their defense, but he believed this particular investment wasn't the correct way to accomplish that goal. He described Lawrence as a very good player who had previously played at an elite level, but pointed to what he viewed as a disappointing 2025 season. Among the numbers referenced were an 8.4% pass rush win rate, along with just 3.5 sacks during that season. Another point Walder emphasized was the value of the draft pick involved. In his opinion, there's a massive difference between trading away the 10th overall pick compared to moving a late first-round selection. Because of that difference, he viewed the overall cost as simply too expensive for Cincinnati. The criticism didn't stop with the trade itself. Walder also questioned the decision to immediately extend Lawrence after acquiring him. When Lawrence arrived in Cincinnati, he still had 2 years remaining on his existing contract. Yet the Bengals chose to move quickly and add another year worth approximately $28 million. From Walder's perspective, both the trade compensation and the extension represented too much commitment. Naturally, that's where the disagreement begins. One important point raised during the discussion is that if someone wants to judge Dexter Lawrence entirely based on his 2025 season, there's certainly an argument they can make. That season wasn't viewed as his strongest. There were concerns about his conditioning. The Giants struggled. Lawrence himself didn't produce at the level many had become accustomed to seeing. Those facts formed much of the foundation behind Walder's criticism. But supporters of the move believe the conversation shouldn't stop there. Since arriving in Cincinnati, Lawrence has done exactly what many hoped he would do. After completing his physical and signing his extension, he immediately got to work. Throughout the offseason, he has reportedly participated fully in every activity available to him. Instead of allowing concerns from the previous season to define expectations moving forward, he has focused on showing commitment from the moment he arrived. Supporters believe that matters. They point to his energy, his attitude, and his willingness to immediately become involved with everything happening this offseason. From that perspective, continuing to focus exclusively on 2025 ignores everything that has happened since the trade became official. The excitement surrounding Lawrence hasn't disappeared among Bengals fans. If anything, many still believe he has the chance to become one of the defining additions of this entire offseason. The discussion then shifts toward another major defensive addition. Jonathan Allen also received criticism in Walder's evaluation. Like Lawrence, Allen wasn't viewed particularly favorably. The concern once again centered around value. Walder acknowledged that Allen was once one of the league's premier defensive tackles during his prime. There was a period when he played a major role on one of the NFL's strongest defensive units. However, Walder argued that those seasons are no longer recent history. He referenced Allen's recent production, pointing out that he didn't generate much statistically during his most recent appearances, including 8 games with Washington before later playing in Minnesota. Based on that production, Walder stated that he would not have spent Cincinnati's money on Allen. There is at least some understanding regarding this criticism. No one is arguing that Jonathan Allen today is exactly the same player he was several years ago. But there is another way to view the signing. The Bengals entered the offseason knowing they needed to improve the defensive tackle position. At the time Allen signed, the Dexter Lawrence trade had not yet happened. That context matters. Rather than expecting Allen to completely return to the absolute peak of his career, the objective appears much simpler. The Bengals wanted to upgrade the defensive line. They identified defensive tackle as an area needing improvement. Allen represented an opportunity to make that group better. Supporters of the move don't necessarily believe Cincinnati expected him to instantly become the dominant version of himself from years ago. Instead, they believe the organization simply wanted more talent, more experience, and better overall play inside. Viewed through that lens, the signing becomes much easier to understand. Then comes the one move Walder actually highlighted positively. That was the addition of Boy Mafe. Even here, though, there was noticeable caution. Walder praised Mafe's efficiency metrics. He noted that Mafe consistently performed well in pass rush win rate, while also ranking highly in run-stop win rate during the previous season. Those numbers suggested an extremely productive player whenever he was on the field. However, Walder's biggest concern focused on workload. His question wasn't whether Mafe could play well. Instead, he questioned whether Mafe could maintain that same level of efficiency if Cincinnati asked him to handle significantly more snaps than he previously played. If Mafe successfully handles the increased responsibility, Walder admitted the contract could become an excellent value. If not, there could be concerns. That uncertainty forms the central debate surrounding the signing. There have already been opinions suggesting Cincinnati may have paid too much by committing approximately $20 million per year. Others wonder whether expanding his role could impact his effectiveness. Supporters of the move see things differently. The expectation isn't necessarily that Mafe suddenly becomes an every-down player who rarely leaves the field. Instead, the belief is that he will continue operating within a deep defensive line rotation. That's similar to the role he previously filled. While playing in that rotation, Mafe consistently found success when given opportunities. The expectation now is that Cincinnati will continue rotating multiple edge rushers instead of relying exclusively on one player every snap. Names like Myles Murphy, Shamar Stewart, and Joseph Osai are expected to be part of that overall rotation, allowing different pass rushers to contribute throughout games. Because of that, supporters don't necessarily believe Mafe's workload will increase to the point where his effectiveness dramatically declines. Instead, they expect him to continue playing meaningful snaps while benefiting from a rotational approach. Finally, there was one addition that received surprisingly little attention. Brian Cook was mentioned only briefly within the overall report. For many observers, that felt like a missed opportunity. Some actually believe Cook could end up making one of the biggest impacts of every player Cincinnati added this offseason. That may sound bold considering the attention surrounding Dexter Lawrence and Boy Mafe, but there are reasons for that optimism. Cook's tackling ability immediately stands out. His presence in coverage could strengthen the secondary. Beyond the physical aspects of his game, supporters also point toward his championship experience. As a two-time Super Bowl champion, Cook arrives with experience that could benefit younger players throughout the defense. Leadership isn't always reflected in statistics. Having someone with that background inside the locker room and on the field may produce benefits that extend beyond individual performance. Because of that, many believe Brian Cook deserved considerably more attention than he ultimately received in ESPN's off-season evaluation. Whether someone agrees with the C grade or completely rejects it, one thing is clear. The Bengals invested heavily in improving their defense. Some of those decisions have already generated national skepticism. Others have created tremendous excitement among the fan base. Ultimately, the only evaluation that will truly matter arrives once the games begin. Every trade, every contract, and every signing will eventually be judged on production rather than off-season report cards. Until then, the debate will continue. Was the Dexter Lawrence trade worth the cost? Can Jonathan Allen still provide meaningful production? Will Boy Mafe maintain his efficiency with Cincinnati? Could Brian Cook quietly become one of the off-season's most valuable additions? Those questions won't be answered by grades on paper. They'll be answered on the field. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you agree with ESPN's C grade for the Bengals offseason, or do you think Cincinnati deserves a much higher mark after everything they've done to strengthen the roster? Share your thoughts in the comments because I'd really love to hear where Bengals fans stand on this debate. Who dey?